479, hosting from one of our famous dwelling places that we all are more accustomed to. I am the Piranha, joined by the Raging Cajuns this evening. Tonight, guys, the main topic tonight will actually be the recruiting scandals that have recently plagued the NCAA sporting events that have impacted all our lives. Most recently would be the Miami Hurricanes, of course.
Yep.
Paul, Raging Cajun, what would your take on the Miami scandal?
I think overall, if you look at just college football, you look at the sport overall, it's a slap in the face to the sport, because almost what you're telling all these universities and all these schools, even we're talking Division III, Division II, Division I, if a big bad boy like Miami can come in and do whatever it wants to and break the rules it wants to, and we're talking about even the president of the university was in on this and knew that this stuff was going on. It has to be a slap in the face overall, because you cannot say these big schools are supposed to be an example.
Right.
And then when a school like this breaks the rules and they don't get punished, or we've yet to see them get punished, assuming we will, we don't know what that punishment is, and that's what we'll discuss here momently. You have to almost go with the death penalty, and as soon as I say that, all the SMU faithful take a deep breath right there, as I remember those terrible days. You almost have to, because this is big bad Miami. They're not dominant in football, but they've played in national championships. If you're going to say everybody has to participate by the same rules, and everybody does, Division III, Division II, Division I, at least with these recruiting rules like what they're talking about, you have to make an example of the Miami Hurricanes. There's no doubt in my mind. And I think, as we're about to get to, I think it has to be something as severe as the death penalty.
Right. And you got key name players involved as well, possibly. You got players such as Willis McGahee for the Broncos, who's declined to comment in numerous news reports now.
But you know he's guilty if he's declined to comment.
Right.
You're automatically guilty.
But Michael Orban comes out and says, he's defending Miami players, but not necessarily the president or the boosters themselves will occur. So it makes you question: has it been going along Miami since the 80s? Has it been going along since the 90s? Who may have been involved? It makes you kind of question who may have been involved.
Yeah, another good point, Ron, I think that we got to remember is the AD last year left and is now at Texas Tech.
Right.
So when you have main components of the university that just, oh, by the way, I'm getting out of here and I'm going to clear across, I'm going to Texas. I'm getting pretty far away from this university right now. Just 1 year before all this happens, you knew he was feeling the heat. And he knew at some point in time this was going to get brought to the nation's attention. These people were going to get a major disciplinary action, which I think we'll see here momentarily. And he decided to just get out while he still could.
True. And he brings up Larry Coker. What did he know? What exactly went on Harris regime? And you can, I guess previous coaches in years past, and they think about the same thing.
Davis.
Right.
And it's tough because we're not here to put Butch Davis under a microscope. But when you look at what he's done, including what happened recently in North Carolina, and he was just recently fired, I believe, last month. I mean, he's a great coach, there's no doubt about that. X's and O's. I'd love to have him on my sideline. He even proved that he could, win a few games in the NFL when he was with the Cleveland Browns. Guy knows how to coach. But you hate that he's almost probably going to have a shadow around him probably the rest of his life. Anytime he goes anywhere, junior high, high school, anywhere, it's always going to be in the back of people's minds saying, you're involved at least 2 different schools. And who knows, they could go further back to early in his coaching career. Who knows what was going on at the pro level? That would be my next question. If this is going on at the college level, there's no telling what goes on at the professional level in the NFL.
Right, or even high school recruits.
Yeah.
Taking, money and bribes, and it's happened. We know it's happened before, and the question is, who's been involved before? How did Reggie Bush go to USC? Knowing even he came from San Diego. I mean, granted, big school in the region, but he goes to USC, takes the bribe. USC loses their title in 05, and vacates all their wins. So it's what players have to consider coming into schools now. You got to think about the big recruits coming in this year. What are they thinking?
And that's really hit Ohio State where it hurts this year. They have lost a lot of recruits this year after the whole Tressel scandal that just recently happened. They've lost people even just going to their rival Michigan. And if you're going to find one way to hurt Ohio State, it's go to their rival school, Michigan, and play for them. Do that. So you know that Ohio State, and as we've seen, USC still on probation, not going to be going to a bowl game, any postseason this year. And it's just unbelievable that within the past 3 years, how much it's been brought to our attention at 3 major universities. We're not talking about Division III. We're not even talking about a Sun Belt team that's a Division I school. We're talking about 3 major universities. And my question to this would be, if these big schools have this much stuff going on, what goes on at smaller schools? Or how in the world could you say, somebody at a Sun Belt conference or a MAC conference or something out west, the Big West, how in the world do these schools get recruits fighting against the big boys when we see what the big boys are offering these recruits out of high school? That would probably blow your mind if you knew what it took for something like that. Now, go ahead.
And what kind of pops up is, I hate to say this, I think they're a well-coached team and they get a lot of 3- and 4-star recruits. Boise State, they kind of came out of pretty much nowhere in the past 5-10 years and suddenly just started expanding the program, and it just blew up. Now granted, winning has helped in the past couple of years, but what caused them to blow up as they did? And I think they're well coached. I think he's one of the best coaches in the nation. They play on the blue turf, of course. People want to go see it. California recruits are interested in it, but you have to wonder, as a 3- or 4-star recruiter out of California, would you be more apt to stay at Cal or USC, UCLA than go to a mountain school out in a 30-degree weather in Boise?
Got to throw TCU in there too.
Exactly.
And even though you say TCU is at least in Texas, and it's the Fort Worth, Dallas area, so it's still a big regime there. So it's not like what you're talking about going to Boise, Idaho, out in the middle of nowhere. But you could at least say TCU all of a sudden came out of nowhere. They're playing the Rose Bowl last year, come out of nowhere, have one of the best coaches, Gary Patterson, but and we don't want to point fingers and say Boise and TCU are doing things wrong. We're not here to say that. We're just saying, if you start dissecting these big schools, you have to go down to the smaller schools, and we're just talking about the Division I level. We're not even talking about Division II, Division III, which is sad because if you think about it, probably no one's going to go investigate a Division II or Division III school. Nobody's going to get penalized for that right there. So I think the next question that we should talk about is, what's the next step for Miami? What do they do? What does the president do? Not just that, probably what does the NCAA do to them?
Right. You have to guess to be self-imposed sanctions first of all. That's going to be the immediate effect.
What Ohio State did. And they've actually found out that's the best way to go so far because, there's still been no postseason ban or anything that's really been. I know they said they fired their head coach, and actually some people say he resigned, but there's no postseason ban. Everything, like you said, it's all been self-imposed. So I would totally agree. I would say Miami does the exact same thing. Look, we can still keep these recruits here. We're not going to lose any. We may have a couple kids that go by the wayside, but if we still get postseason play, let's do whatever it takes.
And they're going to want to keep that bowl game because they haven't been that formidable team as they were in the early 2000s, who's won those national championships and been to the national title game a few times. They're not as good as they used to be, and they're having to compete against now Florida State, who's arguably one of the top 5 teams in the country this year. USF starting to gain momentum in the Big East. UCF is getting a better school. Of course, University of Florida. So you got to consider they're going to want to be in the bowl game to make money. So they're not going to try to impose that sanction with the bowl game, you think, but maybe scholarships or even something to that effect. You have to think they're going to impose someone on the players and the coaches, maybe fine the coach.
Probably.
But you have to wonder that school's going to want to draw that money.
And you got to feel for the new coach that just came in from Temple.
Exactly.
You couldn't be in a worse situation. And this guy had absolutely nothing to do with what went on. He comes from Temple, a private school, I believe, out in Philadelphia. He makes a winner out of that program. He's excited that a big boy school offers him a job just to come to the Miami University and coach there. And before he has one game,